Um, Today I'll talk briefly about the first 10 verses of Upadēśa Undiyār, because in these 10 verses, Bhagavan has very neatly summarized the entire spiritual path from beginning to end in a very beautiful manner. But I'll concentrate mainly on the last 3 verses because they're the most interesting ones, but I'll just quickly go through the first 7. In the first verse, because it was written in the context of a story of some so-called rishis who were deluded about the power of karmas, ritualistic actions, and they believed that actions are everything. There's no God except the power of karma, and that by doing karmas you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. That was their belief. So in the first verse, Bhagavan disparages this belief. He says, karma giving fruit is only by the ordainment of God. That unless God decides which karma gives which fruit, when and where, karma cannot give of its own accord, because he says, karma kadavalo, can karma be God? Karma jadamadal, because karma is jada, it's not conscious, it's an insentient thing. So karma cannot decide which fruit it gives. We obviously cannot decide. We would like to get good fruits even from our bad karmas, but it doesn't work like that. God decides which fruit each karma is to give and when it is to give, because we do so many karmas, so many endless births or dreams, whatever we like to call it. We're constantly accumulating more and more fruits of karma which are waiting to be experienced. They're all stored away, and Bhagavan, for each dream, he selects which karmas are going to bear fruit in that dream. This, our present life being just another extended dream. So he basically, in the first verse, he's simply refuting the view of the Purva Mimamsa philosophy, but karma itself is God. In the second verse, he says, even when we experience karma, karma bears fruit, that is, it yields results. Those results are a little like a physical fruit, say an apple. In an apple we can eat the apple, but the apple isn't finished then. The edible part of the apple is finished, but the seeds survive, and those seeds give rise to more apple trees. So also karma is like that. Even when we experience the fruits of our karmas, even if we do bad karmas, we experience some painful experience as a result. If we do a good karma, we experience some pleasant result, not in this lifetime, in some future lifetime. Even after we've experienced it, it still remains in the form of seeds. So because karma has its nature of leaving seeds, Bhagavan says it throws us into, it immerses us in an ocean of action. Therefore, didu tavile indipra, therefore karma cannot give liberation. In Sanskrit he says even more strongly, he says gati nirodhikam, it obstructs liberation. So we cannot get out of the present mess we're in, this mess of constantly doing karma, taking birth, dying, going round again and again and again. We cannot get out of this mess by doing karma. That's the conclusion of the second verse. Then how do we get out? What can we do then? In the third verse he gives a concession. Usually when we do any action, we do it expecting some result. If I study hard, it's because I want to pass an exam, so that I can get a job, so that I can get married, get a mortgage, have a house, have a family, and live a happy life until one day I die. So every action we do, we're expecting some result from it. If I cross the road to go to a shop, it's because I want to buy a bunch of bananas. I want some fruit from it, some result from it. So this is the nature of the mind. It's always doing things for some purpose. Nishkarmiya karma means we are doing action without any desire for any result. But it's not, Bhagavan doesn't just talk about nishkarmiya karma. He says, kartum nishkarmiya karma, that action, nishkarmiya karma, which is done for God, that out of our love for God and offering the fruit to God, we do nishkarmiya karma. So this is the beginning of bhakti, when we are doing things not for our own sake, for the sake of God. He said, what is the benefit of that? It doesn't give liberation, but it purifies the mind and shows the way to liberation. The word he uses in Tamil for show is kambikam, which literally means causes to see. Now, because our mind is so immersed in karma, it's very dull and we're not able to clearly see what is the way to liberation. If we do action out of love for God, offering the fruit to Him without any desire, that will gradually purify our mind. Once the mind is purified, then we get the clarity to understand what is the way to liberation. So that's third verse. Then from verses 4 to 7, he's discussing all the varieties of nishkarmiya karma that we can do with love for God, and he grades them according to their efficacy. He doesn't explicitly say, but the implication is they're more, each one is successively more effective in purifying our mind than the preceding one. So in the 4th verse he says, this is certain, puja, japa and dhyana, that is, puja is physical worship, japa is vocal worship, dhyana is mental worship. These are actions of body, speech and mind. And in this order, each one is more efficacious or is superior to the previous one. That is more efficacious in purifying our mind. Then in the next 3 verses he deals with each of these. In verse 5 he talks about what is puja. And in Tamil he starts with the word enuru, beginning by saying enuru yavam irayuru ena. That is, enuru has 2 meanings in Tamil. It can either mean form of thought, or it can mean one of the 8 forms. Because traditionally in Shaiva philosophy, philosophy of Shiva, he said Shiva is Ashtamurti. He has 8 forms, and those 8 forms are variously classified in different texts. Generally, it's the 5 elements plus 3 other things. Sometimes it is said Prakriti is one. I've forgotten what. There's one classification that includes Prakriti. Another very common one is sun, moon, and the sacrificing priest. Or another one is sun, moon, and individual souls. So basically, it means everything. All these 8 forms are forms of God. So in other words, the whole of this universe, which is made out of these 8 forms, is God. If one has that attitude, any type of worship, whatever we worship, whether we worship a stone, or whether we see a poor person begging on the street and we offer food or money or give them shelter, whatever we do with an attitude that we're worshipping God through that action, that is good worship of God. That is that's acceptable to God. The other meaning, as I said, one is enuru can mean ashtamurti, the 8 forms. It can also mean forms of thought, because according to Bhagavan, what is this world? It is nothing but, though it appears to be a whole lot of physical phenomena we're experiencing, actually these physical phenomena are mental phenomena. Just like in a dream, we seem to experience a physical world, but it's actually all our own thoughts. So Bhagavan says in this waking state, the whole world that we experience, everything that we experience, is nothing but thoughts. That's mental phenomena. So that's the other meaning. Both amount to the same in the context of this verse. Basically means everything, all forms are forms of God. Therefore, whatever worship you do with love for God and without desire for any result, that is good worship of God. In that's the 5th verse. In the 6th verse, he talks about vocal worship, and he grades it. So more effective than puja is vocal worship. Among vocal worship, we can be singing hymns of praise aloud. We can be in a faint voice. We can be we can be saying japa aloud. We can be saying japa in a soft voice. We can be doing japa mentally. These 4 things. He says each is more effective than the other one. More than singing hymns, doing japa is good. More than doing japa in a loud voice, doing it in a soft voice is good. More than doing it in a soft voice, doing it mentally is good. And mental worship is dhyana, he says. I mean, mental japa is dhyana. So in all these things, he's leading from a more gross form of worship to a more subtle forms. And as our mode of worship becomes more subtle, it becomes more efficacious in purifying our mind. If we're singing hymns, or praising God, it's very easy for our mind to wander here and there. Or if we're doing physical puja, our mind can be wandering here and there. We think we are worshipping, but actually our mind is elsewhere and we don't even notice it. So after an hour of doing puja or singing hymns or something, we feel, I've done an hour of sadhana today. Forgetting the fact that actually throughout that hour we were thinking about what we've got to do when we go to office later in the day or something, or how we're going to solve some problem in our life. So it's very easy with grosser forms of worship for the mind to be distracted and thinking of other things. That's why as our worship becomes more and more subtle, it becomes more and more effective in purifying our mind. So among vocal worship, the most effective vocal worship is mental japa, which is dhyana. So then in the next verse, the 7th verse, he discusses about dhyana, meditation. One form of meditation that we can do with love for God is manasika japa, that's mental japa, repeating God's name with love. Another way is to worship a form of God. We consider Bhagavan to be God, we meditate upon his form. So we can either be repeating Ramana, 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 or we can be visualizing his form and with love meditating upon it. Bhagavan doesn't specify this in verse 7, but it's implied there. And what he says in verse 7 is, more than interrupted meditation, uninterrupted meditation is effective. The reason he said that is, to the extent that we have love for whatever we're worshipping, if we really have love for Bhagavan, we're repeating his name or thinking of his form, our mind won't easily be distracted. If our mind is often distracted thinking about all the worries we have about our worldly life, that means our love for Bhagavan is less intense, because our mind easily gets drawn towards other things. That's why he said the most effective meditation is meditation that is uninterrupted. Because to the extent that our meditation is uninterrupted, that is the indicator of how much genuine love we are having when we meditate. And all these nishkarmiya karmas, what is actually purifying the mind is not the action itself, it is the love with which we do it. That's why the more subtle instruments have more than body, speech, more than speech, mind, they are more effective in focusing our love on God or Bhagavan or whatever. So in these verses he grades all the different types of practice. But the most important verse is when he comes to verse 8. Because up till this point, so long as we are doing any action, whether by body, speech or mind, to worship God, we are taking God to be something other than ourselves. And what he says in verse 8 is, meditating on God as if he's someone other than ourselves is called ananya bhāva. Ananya means other, what is other. So when we consider God to be something other than ourselves and meditate upon him as such, either in the form of Shiva or Rama or Jesus or Buddha or Bhagavan or whatever form or whatever name, it doesn't matter what form or name we give it, the love with which we do it that matters, but we're always considering Bhagavan to be other than ourselves. So our love is divided between ourselves and Bhagavan, because we cannot but have love for ourselves. That's our very nature. If we want to have undivided love, there should be no separation. So that meditation with no separation is called ananya bhāva. That's meditation on what is not other. And he says that avanaham aham ananya bhavam. Avanaham aham means in which the meditation in which God, he is I. In other words, we're not meditating upon Bhagavan as he, we're meditating upon him as I. In other words, it's a way of saying it, we're meditating on I alone. So what he calls ananya bhava, meditation on what is not other, is an alternative description of self-enquiry. So Bhagavan explained how all the other practices of bhakti eventually culminate in Atma-vichara, in self-attentiveness, meditating on ourself alone. And what he says about that, more than meditating upon God as something other than ourselves, meditating on him as none other than ourselves, and of all that is the best, of all means, of all practices of bhakti, of all forms of meditation, of all spiritual practices, this is the best. And he develops this further in the next two verses. In the 9th verse he says, bhāva balatinal. That means by the strength or power or intensity of our meditation, meaning meditation on ourselves. Bhavanatita sadbhava tirutale. Being in our satbhava. Satbhava means our state of being. Bhavanatita, which transcends meditation, which transcends thought. That is parabhakti tattvam. Parabhakti tattvam means that's the real state or the essence of real devotion, of supreme devotion. So the highest devotion is to meditate on ourselves so intensely that we just remain in our natural state of being without rising to think anything. That is, according to Bhagavan, that is the supreme devotion. So so long as we're worshipping God as other than ourselves, that is not supreme devotion. Only when we understand that God is nothing but ourselves and therefore meditate on ourselves alone and meditate with such intense love that we just remain in that, remain as that is supreme devotion. And then in the 10th verse he says, udita idatil odungi idatil. That means subsiding in the place from which we rose and just being. That is karma and bhakti, that is yoga and jnana. Karma there means the path of nishkamya karma, bhakti, yoga and jnana. All these four paths, all varieties of spiritual path are the culmination and essence and goal of all of them is just to remain in our place of rising. The place from which we rose as this ego is only ourself. So it means remaining in our satbhava, what we really are. That is the culmination of all these paths. So Bhagavan takes us through the whole of the spiritual journey from beginning to end in these 10 verses. But what he emphasizes, the best of all, is Atma-vichara, ananya bhāva, meditation on nothing other than ourself. So, if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask.
Michael, these forms of worship, japa, mantra, meditation, dhyana, sort of mental meditation, would you say that they're forms of prayer?
Well, it depends what we mean by prayer. Most prayer is kamya. People pray to God for so many things. It's something that they want from God. Prayer becomes nishkamya only when we pray to God, give me the strength to surrender myself to you, eradicate my ego, give me love for you and nothing else. So when we pray only for what God wants to give us, God wants nothing. When we rise as an ego, we are creating great problem for God, because he has to then come and pull us back and bring us back to our source. So if we want to do service to God, the best way, Bhagavan says in verse 29, that what is doing real service is Bandhavi Datra Paras Kumutra Vaindra Nilay Nitra Undiyār Irekani Nitra Undiyār. I mean, abiding in this state, which is beyond all thought of liberation, of bondage and liberation, that is abiding in the service of God. So the real service we can do to God is only subsiding within. So we all know Bhagavan's told us we should investigate ourselves, we should try to meditate on ourselves alone. But we all have difficulty doing so. Why? Because we still have so much liking to experience all this multiplicity. So long as we have liking to experience multiplicity, our mind will be reluctant to go within to experience itself alone. So we keep on trying to pull our mind within, it keeps on bouncing out again. So this is where prayer becomes useful. If you read the prayers that Bhagavan has composed in Arunachal Stuti Panchakam, they're not praying for health, wealth, or long life, or any of these things. He's praying only for love and for annihilating the ego and for helping him to turn within. Of course, Bhagavan didn't need to pray all these things. Through Arunachal Stuti Panchakam, he's showing us what we should be praying for. If our puja, japa or dhyana, if it is nishkamya, we shouldn't be praying, we shouldn't be doing it for any, well, if we are doing it for any personal gain, then it is that kamya, that is not what Bhagavan is talking about. Two people can be doing exactly the same puja, exactly the same japa, or exactly the same meditation, but for two different purposes. One person can be doing it because they want they think God can bless them so that they can become very rich. Another person is doing it because he wants God to annihilate him. So it's all prayer, but what we are praying for is what decides whether it's kamya or nishkamya. Bhagavan is not talking about the kamya worship, he's talking only about the nishkamya worship.
So it's only really permissible to pray for what God already wants?
Yes,
what
yes, yes.
God wants.
If we pray for anything else, God knows what is good for us, so why should we pray for anything else other than what he wants for us? And what he wants for us most of all is to subside within and be perfectly happy. When we rise as an ego, we encounter misery. So if we want to be perfectly happy, the only way is to subside within. So the only thing we should pray for is the annihilation of our own ego.
Yes, I understand that. I accept that. But there was one exception. Bhagavan did actually pray for his mother, didn't he, when she was
Yes, but if you, Bhagavan wrote in such a way, the word tapa means fever. It can also mean the fever, it can mean physical fever, because his mother was suffering from typhoid or something. It can also mean the fever of birth and death. So Bhagavan wrote those verses with a double meaning.
If one is separated from the self, which is the condition that most of us are in.
Most of us? Can you show me any exceptions?
Yes, indeed, all of us. All of us here. I thought you might be an exception.
No.
But, well, yes, taking that for granted. I mean, isn't it permissible, if one feels even more sort of separate from God than one normally is, for example, if one's in a temper or a cross, or one's afraid of something in some situation, isn't it permissible to say, please God, help me?
Yes, what you're praying for in that case, who has the temper? It is the ego called Alistair who has temper. So when you pray to God to help you not be swayed by anger, indirectly what you're praying for is not to be swayed by ego.
Yes.
So it's all, so long as it's tending towards the annihilation of our ego, whatever we pray for is permissible.
Well, that gives one quite a lot of scope for prayer.
Yes. Yes. But why to pray for if ego is annihilated, all problems are solved. Problems of anger, problems of greed, problems of lust, all these problems will be solved if we get rid of this ego.
Yeah.
So long as the ego is there, however much, that is when Bhagavan says that these nishkamya karmas will purify the mind, they can only purify up to a certain extent, because what is the root impurity? The root impurity is the ego. And in order to do any karma, whether kamya or nishkamya, there must be an I to do it. So long as that I is there, that is the root impurity. So however much we try and purify our mind, fresh impurities will keep on sprouting. It's like trying to attain liberation just by purifying our mind would be like trying to kill a bush by cutting all the leaves and branches. The benefit of cutting the leaves and branches is we get access to the root. Because it's got such dense, thick leaves and branches, we can't get at the root without cutting, to some extent, the leaves and branches. But if we just go on cutting leaves and branches endlessly, without ever cutting the root, it'll continue sprouting endlessly. So these nishkamya karmas are useful up to a certain point, to give us sufficient clarity to understand, if God is the infinite whole, I cannot be other than Him. So He must be what I really am. So rather than treating God as something other than myself, worshipping Him as myself, but meditating upon myself alone, what I really am, that is God. So the benefit of all external forms of meditation or worship, by external forms I don't even mean physical form, even the vocal is external, even mind is external to us as we really are. So everything other than self-attentiveness is what I club as external. That's what Bhagavan calls ananya bhāva. Having an attitude of separation. They all are useful up to a certain point, but they're useful up to the point where they give us the clarity to understand that that ultimately we can surrender ourselves to God, we can reach God only by meditating upon ourselves and thereby subsiding within. Once we've understood that, we don't have to continue doing any of these other practices to purify our mind, because the most purifying of all, when one says that ananya bhāva, meditation on ourself, on nothing other than ourself, is the best of all, what he's talking about through all these verses, grading these different practices, is how efficacious they are in purifying the mind. So for purifying the mind, most effective of all is ananya bhāva. Why it is most effective of all? Not only it keeps all the other desires and attachments at bay, it's also cutting at the root. So this alone, that's why in Sanskrit, in Tamil he said, anaityanam uttamam, that means the best of all. But in Sanskrit he said, pāvani mata, that means it's considered purifying. Implication is, the way he's grading it, this is the most purifying of all. So we don't, once we've understood the efficacy or the necessity of investigating ourselves, meditating on ourselves alone, once we've understood that, we can leave aside all other practices and concentrate only on this, because this is the most purifying. But when our mind does come out, when we're unable to turn our attention back within, when it keeps on dragging us out, then when we come out, we pray to Bhagavan, Bhagavan, please give me the love the love for your feet alone. His feet being I, ourself. So it's not necessary to completely give up all ananya forms of worship. We can continue praying to Bhagavan, but our practice and effort should be focused mainly on trying to attend to I. Whenever we can't attend to I, or whenever we feel we're too weak to do so, then we pray to Bhagavan to help us to turn back within.
Given that, as you say, the most efficacious form of communication with Bhagavan, or God if you like, is that in which there's no distraction, in which you're absolutely one-pointed and focused on Him.
Yes, but even...
No,
so,
hang on.
Okay.
If you petitional prayer is often exactly of that quality, because that's when we're sort of concentrating we're most concentrated on God when we're asking for something, when we're actually want something.
Okay, I've got an exam. I'm sitting exam next week, and I've got to pass my exam, because if I don't pass it, I won't get my promotion in my job. Let's say a scenario. So we pray to God. Is that one-pointed devotion to God? God is there, a means to an end. What we are petitioning Him for, our love is focused mainly on passing that exam, not on God. We are taking, God is infinite whole, we are simply using Him as a means for such a petty thing to pass an exam. Yes. Or even if we're terminally ill, to extend our life a few more days. These are all trivial things. Everything we ask of God is considering what God is, this is trivial things. It's like going to a multi-millionaire and saying, please give me £1 for a coffee.
Yes.
When you go to a millionaire, ask him for everything.
But the important thing is to sort of keep one's line of communication open with God.
The most effective way to keep the line of communication open with God, firstly, the most effective communication, according to Bhagavan, is silence. And the only way we can keep that silent communication open is by turning within. And we don't even need a channel of communication when we turn within, because when we turn within, there's no two-ness, no otherness. When there are two things, you need a channel of communication. When the two become one, when the meditator himself becomes what is meditated on, then there's no need for any, that is going in, opening the door itself, going right into the heart directly.
Absolutely, I mean nobody can quarrel with that. But the trouble is, given that most of us are in the state of being apart with God, the most important thing is to sort of be in touch, keeping oneself in touch.
But why do we experience ourselves as separate from God? because we rise as an ego. Why do we rise as an ego? Because we have so much liking to experience all this wonderful, so-called wonderful world, which brings us endless trouble. So it is because of our, if we had real love for God, we would want nothing more than to subside within, to merge in Him, to not be separate. The very fact that we wake up in the morning, rise up as I am Michael, I am Alistair, that itself is the first ātma-vichāra, the first disrespect we're showing to God. The first, that is, non-devotion begins with the rising of our ego. So however much devotion this ego may have, it is still imperfect. Only when the ego merges back into its source, but into ourself, that is supreme devotion.
Okay. I better leave this because I'm very exercised by this question.
Okay.
It's not everybody else's obsession.
Okay. Yes.
Well, I just wanted to ask two questions actually that you raised in the last sentence. One was, I know the world brings a lot of trouble. It also brings a lot of joy and beauty and love as well.
Yes. It seems to us to be joy because the moment when we experience joy, according to Bhagavan, that is just a temporary relief from the misery of rising as an ego. Even it's all relative, but according to Bhagavan, there is no happiness at all in any external object. Happiness lies only within. We ourselves are happiness. When our mind is agitated with desires, those desires, the mental activity, clouds over the happiness that we really are.
Yes.
When if we're separated from a loved one for a long time, when we come back and we meet them again, we're both so happy. Why are we happy? Because we've both been feeling that separation so much. Our minds have been so much agitated. When we finally come together, we feel, isn't life great? So we feel that joy. That joy, according to Bhagavan, is nothing but the joy which is already within us, but which becomes manifest when the desire subsides. But the problem with we never experience undiminished joy. We're happy for a while, and then life goes back to normal, and we're again seeking something else. So it's all relative. It's just an oscillation between relative happiness, relative misery. There's no such thing as absolute misery, no such thing as absolute happiness for the ego. If we want to experience absolute happiness, unqualified happiness, happiness that has no limits in time or space, eternal happiness, there is not the eternal happiness from this point onwards, but eternal happiness from in all time. In other words, to go beyond time and to experience only happiness, we have to subside within. Then when we subside within, all the happiness we have experienced as an ego will be seen to be very, very, very trivial. Even the greatest happiness is experienced by the mind is very trivial compared to the infinite happiness that we really are.
I do understand what you're saying, but in the meantime, can't we enjoy some limited gifts of happiness?
We inevitably do, even if we have a very hard life. Supposing we are working in a sweatshop, we have to be up 18 hours a day, toiling hard. Virtually modern slavery, in other words, though we're not actually nominally slaves. There are many people nowadays who live a life of complete slavehood because they have no choice but to be working throughout the day. Even for such people, there will be moments of joy. when they come home and lie down on their bed, the relief of just being able to, even though they'll only be able to sleep for 6 hours before getting up to start over again, that'll be a relief. Any type of life, there is a mixture of joy and sorrow. It's all relative. But there's no such thing as unalloyed happiness for the ego. So long as we experience ourselves as mind or ego, whatever happiness we experience will be finite, will be limited.
Sometimes the happiest moments are where you lose yourself in.
Yeah, exactly. So if we could lose ourselves entirely, how happy that would be. Yeah.
It seems to me that an obstacle, or a very big obstacle to losing oneself is sort of fear.
Yes.
And a lot of people are, and I'm sure you've all read accounts that are very, very fear-filled, or at least there's fear there. And how does one overcome the fact that the ego that we think we are, or something I think I am,
We all think
doesn't want to go? It doesn't want to go.
Yeah.
So how does it get rid of itself? Because I don't see how it can.
well, the only way is to persevere in practice. The reason we don't want to let go, we have so many desires and attachments. These are mental impurities. When Bhagavan talks about purifying the mind, it's the desires and the attachments are, well, the root of all these impurities is the ego, so that's a root impurity. But what sustains the ego is its desires and attachments. That is what we're afraid of losing. So only by slowly turning our attention back within, little by little, we need not fear. If we sit down to meditate now, we're not going to get self-realization now, very, very unlikely unless we're really, really ready for it. But one isn't going to force that realization on us until we're ready for it, until we want nothing else at all. So, but by gradually practicing, by trying little by little to attend to our more and more, our love to experience ourself alone will increase, and our desire and attachment for other things will correspondingly decrease. This is how the mind is steadily purified by this effort we make to try and turn our attention back towards ourselves. We can't sit for half an hour or even 5 minutes constantly attending to ourselves. So, but we can we can be constantly trying to turn our attention. Whenever we notice it's distracted, we try to turn it back. This effort we are making, this is what is purifying the mind.
So presumably, as we go about our daily business, as we all have to, a part of us can be holding on to the sense of I am.
Yes, exactly. Because whatever else we may be doing, we are always self-aware. But what we need, but most of the time we're self-aware but negligently self-aware, because we're more interested in experiencing all the things in the world than experiencing ourselves alone. So though we're self-aware, we overlook the fact because we're so interested in other things. We should take more and more interest in just being attentively self-aware. Negligent self-awareness is because of our negligence, pramada it's called in Sanskrit. Because of pramada, all this trouble has arisen. It's only the opposite of pramada, the apramada, that's the self-attentiveness. Trying to be attentively self-aware, that is the only solution. And it is like it's something that picks up momentum, like a snowball. The more we practice this, the more our love to practice it will develop. And correspondingly our desire and attachments will weaken. So the more we do it, the more we'll have love to turn within. It may still seem, after many, many years, we're still struggling as much as we were at the beginning. But why we're struggling? Because the more love we have, the more resistance is put up by our mind. But this is the resistance of the fight put up by a dying soldier. We are winning the battle, even though it may not seem so. Slowly, slowly, we just have to continue.
And there's nothing to stop us doing. I mean, for example, I've got to do a phone interview on Monday morning at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
There's nothing to stop me, whilst giving attention to that interview, nothing to stop me simultaneously.
Nothing to stop you.
No.
There's no need to sit with eyes closed in meditation posture or anything. You can do it when lying in bed, when travelling on the tube, when walking here and there, there's some things in the day that we do, certain things require more of our attention. So at such times we can do this less. But supposing a very close friend of yours had an accident and was critically ill in hospital, and the doctor said, if we may be able to save, may not be able to save, we'll do our best, but it's just that the next few days will tell whether they'll pull through or not. Even when you're doing your work, even when you're having your interview, will not the thought of your friend be constantly coming into your mind? You cannot, because you have so much love for that friend, so much concern for that friend, you cannot avoid the thought of them constantly coming. You may be able to do your work well, but that thought of your friend will be constantly in the background of your mind. If we had so much love to experience ourselves as we have for our near and dear ones, we would very, very quickly make progress.
The term abiding in the self.
Yes.
Is, when the self disappears, self might be, wave, for example, merges into the sea.
Yes.
And the self has been part of the universe, then who is the one who experiences, abides in the self?
As you were talking about earlier, we have to see beyond the words. Abide in the self. Though it is said, abide in the self, the ego cannot abide in self, because the ego becomes ego only when it rises from self. So when we subside in ourself and abide in ourself, we're actually abiding as ourself. So it's not the ego that abides as self, it is self that abides as self. So to the extent we as an ego subside, we remain as we are, that is called self-abidance. Abidance in self or abidance as self.
But there's nobody there, nothing there to abide, experience the abiding of the self.
Cannot self experience itself? If our self were jada, if we were non-conscious, then something else would be needed to experience us. But we alone are as it said in that passage, that question in Chapter 2, Answer 6 of Upadēśa Manjari, Atman alone is the Chaitanya Param, Chaitanya Vastu. So we are that. So it's we experiencing ourselves. The self, people say the self, our language tends to objectify these things. There is no the self, it's ourself. So it's we ourselves abiding in and as ourselves. So, and abidance and experience are not two different things. As Bhagavan said, sat and chit are one and the same thing. The very nature of, our very nature is consciousness. So our very being is consciousness. So by being as we really are, we are experiencing ourselves as we really are. And by experiencing ourselves as we really are, we are being as we really are. Either way we can say it, but it's the same thing.
Can I ask about personalities?
Yes.
Because personalities are kind of part of the tapestry of life, really, aren't they? You kind of, I sort of get the impression that there's a danger of kind of throwing the baby away with the bathwater. Like there are lots of, God-given things. I mean, I suppose the other question I was going to ask last time was, why are we presented with, why did ego come about? And then I thought, well, why, different, I mean, I've heard people's personalities being described as different facets of the diamond, same diamond, sparkling in different ways.
Yes.
I was just wondering why it was all so difficult to start with. I mean, did Bhagavan say anything about how it came about? We all had to find ourselves somewhere.
Well, Bhagavan said it's very easy. It's not difficult.
Yeah.
It seems to be difficult because we don't want it. We don't want to subside. We consider our life as an ego to be at least some joy we're getting from it, aren't we? How can we be sure if we give up this ego we'll get any compensation for it? We are not yet convinced that we ourselves are infinite happiness. If we really believed what Bhagavan had taught us, that we are infinite happiness, we would happily turn back within and subside within here and now. We're having a lot of difficulty to convince ourselves that what Bhagavan said is correct. And the only way to convince ourselves is to follow what he said, which is to investigate ourselves.
Could you sort of do both?
We can. If you see the snake, you don't see the rope. If you see the rope, you don't see the snake. You can't see both together. Either you see it as it is, which is just a rope, or you mistake it to be a snake. So long as you mistake it to be a snake, it's a problem. You may learn to live with the snake. I'm overcoming my fear. I'm becoming very brave. I'm able to face that snake every day. But we're still seeing it as a snake. If we see it as a rope, then we'll no longer see it as a snake. So no, we can't. We can't have ego and we can't be what we seem to be and be what we really are at the same time. We have to make a choice. Which do we want to experience? What we really are or what we seem to be?
Have our cake and eat it.
Yeah, exactly. Bhagavan can give us anything we want, but one thing he can't give us is ego and ourself together. We have to take our pick.
Yeah, but the ego is only the I thought, and how real is the thought? Isn't it?
Exactly.
It's only the I thought.
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, that is
reality whatsoever.
yes.
Thought.
One of the other questions you asked is how the ego rose in the first place. When people asked Bhagavan, he said, first see whether it's risen. And if you're able to find it, then you bring it to me and we'll see how to deal with it. Have you ever seen the ego? The ego is something that seems to exist only so long as we're experiencing other things. When we turn within to try and find this ego, Bhagavan says, Tejana aloktam pitikam. That means if sought, it takes flight, it disappears.
It's a ghost.
Yeah, it's a ghost. A formless phantom.
You mentioned that if you get to your soul, there's infinite happiness there.
Yes.
It's just about infinite happiness. I've heard a Shiv mantra which says, Na sukham na dukham. I assume you know what that means. No happiness, no sadness. So there is a part which says nothing, rather than striving for just happiness. Is not, what have you to say about striving for nothing?
Well, what we are striving for cannot be expressed in words. So often the description of the reality is described in negative terms. It's not this, it's not that, because our mind cannot grasp what it is. But when we are there is nothing for us to gain. Bhagavan used to say it's not about gaining anything. We don't need to gain self-knowledge. We just need to shed ignorance. So there is nothing for us to gain. We just need to get rid of all the if we remove the illusion that it's a snake, we'll see what it is. It's a rope. Well, we can remove the illusion only by seeing what it is. Once we see what it is, we've removed the illusion. We haven't gained anything new. The rope was always there. By seeing it as a rope, we don't gain anything, but we lose the fear. So it's from a mind's point of view, we can explain it positively or negatively, but it amounts to the same thing. All we need to do is, even now we experience ourselves, but it seems that we're not experiencing ourselves as we really are. So we just need to try to be aware of ourselves alone so that we can experience ourselves as we really are. So long as we're experiencing ourselves plus anything else, we're not experiencing ourselves as we really are. Because what we really are is what alone exists. I don't know if that's answered your question or not.
Yeah, yes and no. If you just have infinite happiness, you cannot appreciate it because you need to be unhappy to appreciate happiness. It's like, you can't just have beauty or one.
That is from a mind's point of view. But Brahman doesn't need to be unhappy in order to appreciate its own happiness. It is relative happiness, but can be appreciated only in relative to unhappiness. But absolute happiness doesn't need anything, well, there's nothing that can be compared with it, or there's nothing that can be contrasted with it, because it alone is.
Can I just take up June's point, which is very interesting, this question of personalities. I mean, given that everything is God's creation, the creation of the self, in all our sort of disparate forms, personalities and the differences between us are very beautiful in many instances. And there's something to sort of be cherished and loved. I mean, you're quite a beautiful chap. So is he a beautiful person. I mean, it's the love, isn't it, which is the...
It's all relative. You may think I'm a very beautiful chap, other people may think I'm a horrible fellow. So it's all relative. It's all the beauty of life is very, very trivial compared to the infinite beauty of what we really are.
No,
so long as we're not experiencing ourselves as we really are, all these things seem beautiful.
Well, they may be, but they're pointers to the ultimate beauty as well. I mean, they're indications of the ultimate beauty.
Maybe, in a way, but so long as we're aware of anything other than ourselves, that is distracting us away from ourselves. So the external beauty is ultimately a distraction. Everything other than ourselves is a distraction. If we want to, that ananya, what Bhagavan calls ananya bhāva, that meditation on what is not other than ourself, we have to experience ourself alone. So anything, even the most beautiful thing, we should consider as a distraction.
Yeah, I understand that.
To come to this question of love, because it is about love,
Yes.
isn't it? Universal
Yes.
love.
Yes.
If we can experience relative love, does that not give us a taste of the universal love, so that we kind of have a taste of it?
Yes.
It's just that with the mind we project, say, onto a person or whatever, but
Yes.
actually the experience itself,
Yes.
could that not be considered to be similar?
Yes.
Or a taste?
Yes. Infinite love is our very nature. When we limit ourselves as this ego, our love takes the form of desire, attachment, all these things. These are all limited reflections of the infinite love that we really are.
But it's all a taste on the way, isn't it? Because otherwise it can be very hard. I mean, like I see a lot of the questions are, well, there's nothing inside. And unless we actually had a taste of that experience, either by being in the presence of a master or something, we don't know what it is.
We don't know what it is, but there's something about Bhagavan that has attracted all of us. Why we're all sitting here today, why we're not watching football or Wimbledon or whatever, I don't know what all these things, but I mean, there's so many wonderful things out there in the world that we could be doing now. Why we're sitting here talking about Bhagavan's teachings? Something has attracted us.
But when for example, when you love another, like another human being, or even when you just have a moment with an animal like a dog or something, isn't it that you're actually, if you're loving the dog, you're actually loving yourself? You know what I mean?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
So you prefer to, if you prefer dogs or you like nature or you want to, you can actually love a tree.
Yeah.
But you're having the experience of that love, some part of that within.
It's when you have a pet dog, you're very, very fond of your pet dog. When you come home from work in the evening, you're very happy to see your dog's happy to see you go out for a walk together. Both of you, why you're loving each other, because you both give pleasure to each other. So what we actually love is the pleasure that we get from, the happiness that we derive from things. We think we are loving the object, but actually we're loving the happiness that object seems to give us. Right. According to Bhagavan, that happiness and that love is ourself.
But that's of course temporary, because when the dog dies, then
problems arise. Exactly.
And of course that love that you feel, the sort of joy of love, the sort of pleasure of love, equally applies to our love of God.
Yes.
But it's valid to love God in that way.
But the thing is, God is, at first we have a very concrete concept of God, and we take a particular form to be God, or a particular religion to be, that is God's religion, and this is the religion I follow. We've got very fixed ideas at first about God. As we progress along this, the path, the spiritual path, the path of devotion, our concept of God becomes much more fluid, much more abstract. Because ultimately God is the most abstract of all things, which is ourself. So our love for God, as it matures, it matures away from being a love for a particular thing to a love for the whole. Yes, it is.
But you see,
God is a very good focus for our love.
But you see, everything is God.
Everything is God, yes.
To the extent that we love everything, we are loving God.
Yes, but everything is God. But so long as we experience everything, we are not experiencing God. Because the snake is a rope.
Yes.
But so long as we see it as a snake, we are not seeing the rope. So all this is God. But so long as we're seeing all this, Bhagavan says in the third paragraph of, fourth paragraph, third or fourth paragraph of Who Am I? Just like you cannot see, just like the knowledge of the rope will not arise until the knowledge of the snake is removed, the knowledge of ourself will not arise until the knowledge of the world is removed. So long as we experience the world as world, we are not experiencing it as God. The only way, if we want to experience the whole world as God, we first have to experience ourselves as God. When we experience ourselves as God, then we will see everything is God. Because, well, in fact, we'll see God alone exists, nothing else exists.
Surely the two things happen together, I think.
Yes, yes. Yes, but what Bhagavan is saying there is that the two are incompatible. You cannot see the world and see God.
I'm not sure that that's so. I think one can.
Then you're not seeing God as He is, because God is not this world. The world is God, but God is not the world.
But it isn't, He isn't, it isn't, it isn't.
It is God who appears, who seems to be this world.
God is love.
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to dissolve into.
Yes. And you are love.
Yes.
You are not separate from God.
So are you.
Yes, yeah. In one verse in Akshram, my Bhagavan says, Ambu Vilarikul Amburu Vunilene Ātma-vichara. Dissolve me as love in you, the form of love. Like ice melts in water, dissolve me as love in you, the form of love.
Yes. But I mean, we learn how to love by loving other things. And this,
yes, this is all ananya bhāva. But Bhagavan is trying to take us beyond this ananya bhāva towards ananya bhāva.
Our business is trying to sort of transmute that love of other things into a single love of God, isn't it? That's what we're trying to do.
But even God is another thing. So long as we talk of Him as God, if we didn't consider God to be another thing, why do we use the word God? Why don't we just say I?
Well, indeed, yes. That's a good
Yeah. That is why this verse 8 of Upadēśa Undiyār is a very, very important verse. More than ananya bhāva, we can also take bhāva to mean love. More than the love for God as another, love for Him as ourself, as not other, knowing that He alone is I, that He is nothing but I, that is anatima ultimum, the highest of all, the best of all. So so long as we have love for God as another, it's only a very limited love. If you want to experience infinite love for God, you have to love Him as yourself, experience Him as yourself. How Bhagavan had love for everything.
We just have to beat Him, don't you?
Yeah, we have to beat Him, yeah. How Bhagavan had love for everything, because for Him, He didn't experience anything other than Himself. So in our view, He had love for everything. In His view, He had love only for Himself.
In other words, He didn't experience anything else, anything except as love.
Yes,
He only
exactly.
experienced love.
Yeah.
He was love.
He was love, exactly. Sorry, so many hands.
I think I understand what Alistair was getting at, and maybe it's also only my own idea.
Yeah.
I think it also maybe comes from the Christian kind of background of loving God, loving our neighbor, loving ourselves.
Yeah.
Is that not like a gradual process also of shedding the ego, of increasing our love for everything, absolutely everything, and then obviously certain things trigger some of the other things, or certain people trigger some of the other things, and kind of like, is that not also...
Yes, I mean, as we develop on the spiritual path, many things are happening. Like before we the most base state we can be in is to have love only for ourselves, not to care about anyone else. I care only for myself, as myself being myself as a person. That is the crudest state we can be in, because then everyone else is just a means to my end. I'm ready I don't care whether I cause trouble to other people. I only care for myself. If I'm happy, that's sufficient for me. That's the most crude state. We move beyond that when we begin to love husband, wife, mother, father, child, children. When our love gets expanded from ourselves as a person to what is ours, to our family. And then it gets expanded to further than that to I'm a white person, I love all white people. Black people, a bit suspicious of them. I mean, this is how the human mind works. This is how the human mind works. Then we understand, actually no, we're black people, and white people, and yellow people, and we're all the same. We're all people, we all have exactly the same thing. So our love for humanity, we reach a point where we can't bear to see even an animal suffering, because we see ourselves in that animal. So when we hear that cows are sent to the slaughterhouse or chickens are sent to the slaughterhouse, it causes us pain, because we can feel the pain of that cow or that chicken, because essentially they're just the same as us. Like us, they also have a body which they experience as themselves. They want to live as long as possible. They want to have a family and live normal life. All creatures are the same. So our love slowly expands. We begin to, it becomes more and more encompassing, less and less narrow. And loving God is one way of expanding our love. Because if we understand everything is God's creation, according to a certain type of belief about God. Everything is God's creation, so I should love everything as God's. That's the fifth verse of Upadēśa Undiyār, considering all forms as forms of God, worshipping everything as God is good worship of God. So it is, yes, we can say, in a way, the spiritual path is a matter of expanding our love. But it's, there's a limit to how far we can go. Like if we read the newspaper, we hear suffering of so many kinds in the world. There was an earthquake in Nepal. In the Middle East, so many terrible things are happening. There's ISIS and all sorts of... in Syria, so many terrible things are happening. There's a limit to our capacity to feel all these things. When we hear about them, we feel, oh, that's terrible. But we can't, our mind isn't preoccupied all day long with the terrible things that are happening in the world. Because we just can't, we couldn't cope with that. We cannot, there's a limit to how much we can extend our concern. We do feel concern, but our concern for those who are far away from us is limited. When we hear about the earthquake in Nepal, we give our donation as much as we can to help those people. But beyond that, it doesn't concern us as it would if we were there and if half our family had died in the earthquake. So there's a limit to how much we can we can feel the suffering of others. We do empathize with it, we do feel compassion for the suffering of others, but we can't be feeling it to the same extent that we feel the suffering of those close to us. That is why ultimately, in order to expand our love infinitely, we have to go back to the root. Why our love is not infinite now? Because of the ego. Because we experience ourselves as this person. So we can expand our love a little beyond the limits of this person, to this person's family, to all of humanity, to all sentient beings. To some extent we can. But if we remove this limitation of experiencing ourselves as an ego, then we truly experience infinite love. In the 5th verse of Upadēśa Arunachal Pancharatnam, Bhagavan says, he's describing the state of Vijnana, basically, the state of self-experience. He says ananya mil ambu, loving everything without any anya, without any otherness. That is, only when we experience ourselves as the one infinite reality will we experience everything as ourselves, and will we really be able to love our neighbour as ourselves. Until then, our loving our neighbour as ourselves, it's a nice idea, but it's a bit theoretical. We are not really able to love others to the extent that we love ourselves. We should, but we can't achieve that until we have rooted out our own ego.
Self-realization.
Self-realization, yeah. Self-realization means experiencing ourselves as we really are, and thereby destroying this illusion that I am this little person, Michael.
Yeah, this character.
Yeah.
Simply because I wanted what you say kind of on record. Otherwise, what I find is I can't remember a detailed exposition. And the question I was asking was, what's the correct, or what is the appropriate attitude to take in this teaching towards one's loved ones? You know, because what Bhagavan seems to be saying is that this is actually a dream, which we take ordinarily, we take this to be not a dream at all, but reality. And it was only when I came across Bhagavan's teaching that I gradually came to accept this possibility. Because if you'd have asked me 20 years ago, I'd say, oh, rubbish, you're talking absolute rubbish. Yeah. So, but then the difficulty is, if everything is an illusion, that means that even Bhagavan or even your own nearest and dearest are unreal or illusory in some way. And then you said to me something about, well, so are you, Barry, you're unreal too. The one who's worrying about it. I wonder if you could...
Right. The thing is, so we only see Bhagavan as a form. We only have wife, children, family, other friends and everything when our mind comes out. When I experience myself as Michael or you experience yourself as Barry, then only we experience all this otherness. So the root of all otherness is, or the root cause of all the otherness is our mistaken experience. I am Michael, I am Barry, I am whoever. The person you now take yourself to be, Barry, is as unreal as all of Barry's near and dear ones. When you experience yourself as Barry, you experience Barry as real. So when interacting with other people, you should interact with them as if they're real. Because they are as real as Barry. And it is Barry who is interacting with them. But Bhagavan, why Bhagavan said all this is a dream is not for us to change our behavior, our outward behavior. It is in order to help us to free our mind from our attachment to these things so that we can turn within. When we turn within, there's no form of Bhagavan other than as ourself. There's no near and dear one, there's nothing, there's only ourselves. That is what we're aiming for. But because we lack sufficient love, we keep on coming out and experiencing all these things. Because we have more desire and attachment for all these things, but we have love just to be ourselves, we keep on coming out. When we come out, we see this world, we have to interact with it. We have to provide food, clothing and shelter for our body. We have to interact with other people and everything. In a dream, it's all a dream, but if you're hungry in a dream, you have to eat food. When you eat dream food, your dream hunger is satisfied. So when we're dreaming, we behave in the dream as if it's all real, because that's what it seems to us to be at that time. And another thing I was explaining to you, why all this appears real, why it cannot but appear real. There's actually only one thing that is real, and that is ourself. Because we mistake a body as ourself, that body seems to us to be real. Because we are real, if the body is ourself, then the body is real. So we superimpose our own reality upon the body, which we experience as ourself. And because that body is part of the world, but the body can't be real and the world unreal. So if the body is real, the world must also be real. So when we superimpose our own reality upon our body by experiencing it as ourself, via the body we superimpose reality upon the whole world. What is real is only ourself. But because we mistake ourselves to be this body, the body seems real and hence the world seems real. So when our mind comes out, we have to react with the world as it appears, which is as real, as if it's real. But we should be always inwardly remembering that this isn't real and that our real task should not be just interacting with the world. Our real task should be turning within.
Yes.
So all that Bhagavan taught us about the unreality of the world was just to help us to turn our mind within.
Yes. Well, I appear to be sort of caught, between Bhagavan's teaching, which I'm trying to get to grips with intellectually, as a step towards proceeding in the direction he advocated, and his experience of that the dream is real.
Yeah.
And how does one, what you seem to be saying, I've got to somehow invert my attention, which is a struggle, to turn it within, to try and become, or to see myself.
To experience yourself as you really are.
As I really am. And that seems to be at the moment a tremendously demanding task, which I'm unable to do.
It's not correct to say that we can't do. We all have difficulty because we all have strong desires and attachments. So it is not easy for us to turn our mind to be self-attentive. Our mind keeps on trying to jump away towards other things. That difficulty is faced by all of us. But we can gradually try, little by little, a moment here, a moment there, throughout the day, if we are enthusiastic about trying to be aware of ourself alone, and keep on turning our attention back towards ourselves, keep on remembering just to be aware of ourselves, that will have a slow effect of wearing away all our desires and attachments and increasing our love. As Bhagavan said, the only way is perseverance. Nobody has ever succeeded in this path without perseverance.
Yes.
So it seems difficult, but, well, according to Bhagavan, it's actually easy. It's the easiest of all things, because what can be easier than experiencing ourselves as we really are? It seems difficult because we don't want to. When we experience what we really are, we have to give up Barry, Michael, and all. I mean, when you give up Barry, you give up all Barry, near and dear ones, everything.
Yes,
No need to give up Barry, near and dear ones, so long as you're taking yourself through Barry. That was another thing I said to you earlier. There's no use in going and sitting in a cave in the Himalayas, thinking we can free ourselves from our attachments. Because so long as we're attached to Barry or Michael, we're taking our attachments along with us.
Yeah.
What we need to do is not separate ourselves from our near and dear ones. All we need to do is to separate ourselves from the one we take to be ourselves. If we do that, if you can separate yourself from Barry, that's sufficient. Because by separating yourself from Barry, you're separating yourself from everything. Because everything comes into existence only when you experience yourself with Barry.
Yeah, so what would happen then? What would happen then to, your nearest and dearest?
Nothing will happen.
Well, you say that, but first of all, it sounds almost like I won't even see them because
all happening happens only when the first happening is the rising of the ego. What happens in sleep? Nothing happens. When the ego rises in either waking and dream, that is the first happening, and all other happenings happen after that.
Yes.
So when we experience ourselves as we really are, it will be clear that the rising of the ego never happened, and therefore nothing has ever happened. That is called ajata. Ajata means non-birth, non-origination. Nothing has ever happened.
But from my perspective at the moment, that sounds, if you're going to say, look, what you're looking forward to, Barry, is the experience of deep sleep, which is zilch.
It's the experience of...
sound very rewarding.
The experience of deep sleep appears zilch from the point of view of the ego, because the ego isn't there in sleep. But you were there in sleep and you experienced it and you had no complaints in sleep. But we cannot, we know that we experience sleep, a state in which we experience nothing other than ourselves, a completely featureless experience. We know we had that experience. But because we now experience ourselves as the ego, the bliss of that experience is somehow clouded. Because we don't experience what we really are now, we cannot now experience what we experienced in sleep, which is what we really are. So we shouldn't go by our mind's judgment of sleep. But what we are aiming for is to experience sleep, a sleep-like state, with full clarity of awareness. And there will be no, nobody has ever attained that state and come back and say, oh, it's really not that great.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking of Bhagavan now, because according to the stories that were written down about him, he ran away from home after having some such experiences we're talking about. Yeah. He moved away from home, and Mum pursued him, and he didn't speak to his mother. He wrote a note to her saying, look, silence is the way. He didn't even speak to his mother, and he had to, you know. But in the end, then he did seem to, you know, later on, in later years, he was seemed to be praying for his mother, and he put his hand, when she was dying, he tried to help his sister in sort of realising the truth. So it's kind of a contradictory way to begin.
Well, okay. The first thing is we shouldn't. All the stories we read about Bhagavan, if you ask Bhagavan, he'll tell you they're all false. False. None of these stories are true. Because he never experienced himself as that person. So in his experience, what he experienced that day in Madurai, that is all he experienced eternally, which is himself. He, as Bhagavan himself often said, all the outward life of the jnani is true only in the view of the ajnani. It's only in our view that Bhagavan is this person who was born in Tiruchuri, who at the age of 16 had an experience in Madurai, came to Tiruvannamalai, lived there for 54 years. That's true only in our view. In Bhagavan's view, I alone am. So when we see the outward life of Bhagavan, we have no inkling of what actually his experience was. There's one verse in Uludunatsu, I think it's about 33 or 34, where he says who can and how to understand the state of their state who know nothing other than themselves. That is the verse where he says, that verse begins by saying, for those who experience the bliss that rises on the destruction of the ego, they do not experience anything other than themselves, how to know what their state is. So it's in our view that Bhagavan seems to be a body, seems to have a mind, seems to answer questions, but according to Bhagavan, when we experience what we really are, we will find that all that is just, Bhagavan himself said the appearance of the Guru is similar to the appearance of a lion in the dream of an elephant. There is a belief that elephants are so afraid of lions that if they dream about a lion, they'll at once wake up. So the Guru is like that lion that appears in the elephant's dream. The lion is not real, but the awakening that is brought about by the appearance of that unreal lion in the elephant's dream is real. So also the name and form of the Guru is unreal, but it brings about the real awakening.
Can I just ask you one other question? And that is, what you seem to be describing there, which you call the Ajata experience, seems to be, is it similar to solipsism that they talk about?
Well, solipsism is equivalent to what is called in Sanskrit ekajiva-vada, which means the belief that there's just one jiva, one individual. That is what Bhagavan taught as an interim teaching. Because Bhagavan didn't actually, though Bhagavan said his experience was Ajata, that's not a practical thing to teach. Because according to Ajata, there is no appearance. But in our view, there is an appearance. All this world does appear. So what Bhagavan taught is what is called Vivartavada, which is the doctrine of false appearance. Also called Drishti Shrishti Vada. That is, the creation appears as a result of our seeing. So, and according to that, part of that teaching is this Ekajiva Vada, but there's only one ego, just as in dream, There's only one person experiencing the dream. So long as we're dreaming, there seem to be many people in the dream. We meet friends, we talk with them, we have discussions. You and I could be having a discussion like this in a dream. But when we wake up,
It is a dream, isn't it?
It is a dream, yes. But when supposing we had this discussion last night in your dream, and when you wake up, would you think that, oh, Michael was there in my dream, so I can talk to Michael about what we talked about in our dream? No, you know that the Michael you saw in your dream was your own creation. There was only one person in your dream. That is yourself. That is solipsism, ekajivavada. So if we accept Bhagavan's teaching that this world is a dream, we have to accept that we are the only one. There's only one jiva, only one ego. But so long as we're interacting with the dream, we have to interact as if there are many jivas and many egos. Your wife wouldn't be very happy if you said, no, you're just my dream creation, I'm not going to talk to you today.
No. Okay, well, thank you very much.
So all that Bhagavan has taught us is not for applying in our external activity, it is for applying internally, all to help us to turn within. If we are firmly convinced that all this is a dream, it makes it that much easier for us to leave things aside and turn within. That's the sole purpose of Bhagavan's teaching. It's not meant to... Bhagavan didn't want us to change our behavior towards our family or our friends or anything. We have to continue acting as if all this is true, because the one who is acting is Barry, who is himself part of this dream. As I said to you earlier, Barry's near and dear ones are as real as Barry. So Barry should behave with them accordingly.
Hi, Michael. Michael, I understand the ideas reasonably well about identity with Kieran and identity with the self, and making that move through self-enquiry.
Yeah.
And I've known this for many years. What my question is, what encouragement or how can I weigh the importance in myself, if I can, about moving from the identity with Kieran and all the little foibles of life to that perception of self where it still goes on, but I'm not so concerned with it because I know I identify with the self. What is that?
According to Bhagavan, the only way is perseverance. I think earlier before you came, Bhagavan used to say, nobody has succeeded in this path without perseverance. It's only by the persisting in our practice that we can slowly wean our mind away from all its attachments. For all of us, Bhagavan's teachings are just ideas at the moment. We can understand them, but merely understanding ideas is not experiencing what is real. What is important in Bhagavan's teaching, they're very useful ideas Bhagavan has taught us, but they're still ideas. By words you cannot convey anything more than ideas. Through his words, Bhagavan has conveyed to us ideas that will help us greatly in this path. But receiving help to proceed in this path is useful only if we proceed in the path. Without practicing, all Bhagavan's teachings are of no, well, Bhagavan himself would say they're useless.
So persistence.
We have just patient persistence.
I have a very simple question. I'm just starting on this path. from my little understanding of myself, I am my body, my mind, I am the body, mind, and the soul.
Yeah.
So I assume it's quite right to say, use the phrase my body and my mind, because that says I am not my body, I am not my mind, I am something else. By the corollary, I should not use the phrase my soul, because that's either a contradiction or I'm moving away from my real self by using the term my soul. Is
Yeah, but it's very difficult to talk about this subject without getting ourselves into contradictions, because language has developed for communicating about the world. There is no language other than silence that can adequately communicate about what we ourselves are. We are beyond words, beyond thoughts. So what Bhagavan has taught us in words is only pointers. Bhagavan himself said, we cannot, in no book can you find self-knowledge. Books mean words. Even in Bhagavan's words, we cannot find self-knowledge. But Bhagavan's words do point us to where we can find self-knowledge, which is within ourselves. So by understanding Bhagavan's teachings clearly, that helps a lot in our practice. But it's not a substitute for practice. It can never be a substitute for practice. We have to try. Try and persevering until we eventually succeed. We just have to keep on trying. Because every little attempt we make on this path is one step closer to our goal. Every time we withdraw our attention from other things and focus it on ourselves, every moment that we are attentively self-aware, we are weakening our desires and attachments for other things. It may be imperceptible, we may not be able to see the progress we're making, but we're certainly making progress.
Is it like a sort of ratchet then? It can only go one way. So every time we make an advancement, we always, it's an irreversible process. That would be very encouraging.
Well, I think it is. I think it is, yes. We can try and leave Bhagavan, but he won't leave us. In the manner of speaking.
Yeah.
So
you can't fall from grace and have to start up all over again. You couldn't just fall from a high state and then have to start from square one as well.
Well, I don't know, that's a worry for you because you've risen up. For those of us who are still at rock bottom, we don't have to worry about it.
That's jumping together.
No, we're on the journey home. That we can be sure about. And if we continue along this path, then we can delay on the path, but we can't go back.
Just another sort of thought, and that is, I kind of find the idea of being on a journey, like going somewhere.
Yes.
Seems, in my own reflections on this, seems to be kind of an erroneous view, to kind of have an idea that you're trying to achieve an objective. It's really the mind sort of latches onto this thought, and it becomes a thought that's very like other types of objective.
Yeah.
You're trying to make an objective of, self-realization. Whereas in fact, really, ultimately, there is no journey at all. You just need to get to a point where you realize that there is no movement from A to B whatsoever.
Absolutely, because where we're going is to ourselves, so there's no distance to cover. But from certain perspectives, considering it as a journey is useful. It's not actually, we're not actually going anywhere, because the place we're trying to reach is here, is what we are already. So it's can never capture it perfectly. And if we talk about journey, it is a journey, we should understand that in a metaphorical sense, because there's no place other than what we are now, where we're going. As Bhagavan used to say, there's nothing to achieve on this path. It's just a matter of, there's nothing new to learn, it's just a matter of unlearning. I've learned that I'm Michael, that this world is real, all these things. I've got to unlearn that. Simply reading in books that I'm not Michael and this world is not real, that is not the real unlearning Bhagavan is talking about. That is just the beginning of it. But the real unlearning happens only when we turn our attention within. The more and more we become clearly aware of ourselves and thereby shed our attachment for everything else, the more we're unraveling all this, the more we're unlearning everything. But the final unlearning comes in a moment when we experience what we really are. We will, the ego which we now experience ourselves will be completely obliterated, and what will remain is what has always been and will always be real. What alone is real.
You mentioned perseverance, and is perseverance and the vasana directly proportional? There are two types of vasanas. Yeah. There's Vishaya vasanas, which are the vasanas which it's our liking to experience things other than ourselves, are called Vishaya vasanas. Yeah. The opposite to that is called Sat vasana, which is our liking just to experience ourselves as we really are. So, to the extent that the Vishaya vasanas get weakened, the Sat vasana will increase. Yeah. Or rather, it'd be better to express it the other way. To the extent that our Sat vasana increases, our Vishaya vasanas will decrease. That Sat vasana is our love, that love we have to experience ourselves. Yeah. The more we try, if we have love to experience ourselves alone, we will try to do so. The more we try to do so, the more we fan that fire of Swapna Bhakti. Another name for Sat vasana is Swapna Bhakti. Swapna means for one's own self, love for one's own self. So when you say you should struggle to get it, it comes to you automatically when it's due to you. Does it become an issue then of perseverance again?
Yes, we have to, until we experience what we really are, we have to continue persevering. Okay. Persevering means, what I mean by persevering is persevering in trying to experience, in trying to be attentively self-aware.
Through self-inquiry?
Yes. Well,
that's the perseverance.
Yes. It's not through self-inquiry. Self-inquiry, trying to be attentively self-aware is self-inquiry.
Yes. Inquiring your mind.
Yes. Without making inquiry, being self-aware. That becomes this aware in your life as you carry on to life.
Inquiry is not the best translation for vichara, because the trouble with the word inquiry in English, it has two meanings. Inquire can mean investigate, it can also mean to question. Vichara is inquiry in the sense of investigation, not in the sense of questioning. So what is called self-inquiry or self-investigation is simply investigating ourselves. And the only way we can investigate ourselves is to observe ourselves. There's nothing else other than being self-attentive, other than watching ourselves, other than trying just to be aware of nothing other than ourselves. There's no other way we can investigate ourselves.
So what you're saying basically is an awareness, being aware of it.
Being attentively, we're always aware, we're always self-aware. There's never a moment when we're not self-aware. There's never a moment when you don't know I am. Yeah. We're always self-aware.
but because of our interest in other things, we are attending to other things, we're neglecting our self-awareness. So we're always self-aware, but generally we're negligently self-aware. We've got to become attentively self-aware. So it's attentive self-awareness. That is the practice.
Bhagavan used the analogy of the soul and the child.
Yes.
And the man asleep on the cart.
Yes.
What is he getting at with those two?
The sleeping child is, he used those analogies in different contexts. One context he used, the sleeper in the cart, was talking about the state of the jnani. As I was saying earlier, we say Bhagavan, at the age of 16, he got self-realization. He travelled from Madurai to Tiruvannamalai. For some years he was keeping silent. When his mother first came, he didn't answer any of her questions. He didn't even speak to her. But later he prayed for her recovery. And then after she passed away, she was buried at the foot of the hill. Ramana moved down to the foot of the hill. He lived there for 30 years in the old hall, answering people's questions. That is all true according to Bhagavan, only in our view. In his view, he doesn't experience any of this. To illustrate that, he said, for the jnani who is asleep in the body, asleep in the body means the jnani is unaware of the body or world, the passing states of activity, that's waking and dream, of sleep, and of nishtha. Nishtha means self-abidance, or samadhi, totally absorbed in samadhi. All these, he's unaware of them. Just like someone sleeping in a cart is unaware of whether the cart is moving, or whether the bullocks are standing still, or whether the bullocks have been unyoked. It's all the same. And the other one you say, the sleeping child who's fed by the mother even though it's asleep. It doesn't know that. In the morning when it wakes up, it won't remember that. So that's one context in which such analogies are given. Another context in which such analogies are given, Bhagavan sometimes used to say, like a person travelling on a train doesn't always keep their luggage on their head. They put it down on the luggage rack beside them because the train is carrying all the burden. So we should be so indifferent to the needs of our body. The grace that has given us this body will provide, according to our destiny, all that we need. So we need not think about our world. We may be in poverty, we may be in hardship, so many things. We need not think about these things. We can leave all that burden to God. Our only concern should be to turn within.
And if we self-realize on the train disappears.
Yes. We can say the train disappears, but actually, when we experience that, we will find there never was any train in the first place. That is why Bhagavan said, though this wasn't what he taught, was when the ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. When the ego doesn't exist, nothing exists. That was what he taught, because that's a practical teaching. Because for us it seems that the ego and all this does exist. But he said his actual experience is a jata. But there is no ego, there is no world, there's nothing. There just is what is, which is ourself. So it's not that when we express it, it has to be said, but when we experience what we really are, everything will disappear. But that's from the point of view of this ego, it has to be expressed like that. From the point of view of our real self, the ego never existed. There never was any bondage or liberation realization or unrealization. There is only what is, I am.
Just a more flippant point, can I experience karmic consequences of sins that I commit in my dream in the waking state?
Okay, all these things about karma, our mind cannot understand. I mean, we have no means of knowing these things ourselves. We have to rely on what is said by sages. Generally, it is said that in dream we don't accumulate fresh karma. We're just experiencing the fruit of our past karmas. That is said in one context, but if you compare that with Bhagavan's teaching that waking and dream has no difference, that doesn't really stand up. So all these things, these are all external things. There's no final answer to all these things. Sometimes in one context one answer may be given, in another context a contradictory answer may be given. What we have to understand is all dreams are totally unreal. And the one who experiences the dream is the ego, which is itself unreal. But to experience it as unreal, we need to investigate it. Then none of these questions will arise. So long as there's someone to answer these questions, answers will be given, but none of those answers are the absolute truth.
In a way, following on sort of perhaps a bit from what Barry was saying, but taking a slightly different tack, I mean, what seems, again, very challenging is that there's no sense really of what we're aiming for. We don't really know what we're going for. I mean, all these pointers like dwell on the sense of I am, or self-investigation. And you know, there's a sense in which it appears to be almost, and I know that may not be the truth, it appears to be almost nihilistic, the truth. It seems as if it's nihilistic. And in the sense of why you can go for that at all. But more importantly, I suppose the real question is whether it is nihilism. Because the teaching would seem to say that no, it's not nihilism, there is something that's actually real. But
there's a very, very ancient argument in India between the Sunyavadins and the others. Sunyavadins are those, particularly of certain Buddhist schools, who say everything is void. Bhagavan had given his verdict on that in Ulughnavdu. He said it is fullness, not a void. It is devoid of everything that we now consider to be real. It's devoid of world, it's devoid of ego, it's devoid of all duality, all multiplicity, all that is void. But it is absolute fullness, because it is full of what is, what alone is. So our mind cannot grasp that. So often it's described in negative terms, because sometimes positive descriptions are given, like it is Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat means it is what is, Chit means it is what is aware, Ananda means it is what is happy. But beyond that, it's very difficult to give any positive description. And even those words are inadequate descriptions of it, because it is beyond words, beyond conception. So the only way to know what it is to experience it. And even say it is wrong, because it is not it but I. So we have to experience ourselves, that's all. We know we exist. We know we are something. We cannot be nothing. Yeah. So what is that something? Everything else maybe illusion, but at least we must be real in order to experience. Whether it's all real or illusory, the one who experiences it must be real, but not necessarily as the experiencer. Because what is real is only ourselves, but we are not real as the ego who is experiencing all this. That is just what we seem to be.
And is this why we have no memory of it? Because the mind can't grasp it? Because if we
have memory of it and no memory of it. We have no memory of it because it's ever present, so it's not something to be remembered. We have no memory of it because our present experience of ourselves as a finite ego obscures our experience of ourselves as we really are.
It's just, I suppose, we must always have been it. It's not that we are it now, we will be it. We must have been it.
We are all, even when the rope appears to be a snake, it is always a rope. But in order to, until we see that it is actually a rope, that truth will not dawn on us. Now it seems to be a snake. It's pretty terrifying. There are all sorts of poisonous snakes around here. We don't know what variety it is. It must be a pretty dangerous one. The only way to free ourselves from that fear is to see what it actually is.
Thank you. Michael, could you just go over what you said just now about the Sunyavadis? I understood you to say that Bhagavan regarded Sunya as that which is devoid of what is not. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, these are words, because it's a matter of interpretation. In order for something to be empty, void means empty. Nothing cannot be empty. But nothing can be either full or, nothing doesn't exist. So it's neither full nor empty. So if you say something is empty, you're indirectly asserting that there is something that is empty. So we can reinterpret the Sunyavada to say that it's an affirmation, it's not nihilism. But there were, in ancient times in India, there were people who were very, very insistent on this idea, but it is complete, I mean, virtually they were nihilists. But
I think the Buddhists,
particularly Buddhists. But it's not all Buddhists, but it was the particular groups of Buddhists who were very obsessed with this idea of everything being absolutely void. I think there is a kernel of truth in it, as you say, but the reality is devoid of all this appearance. In that sense it is void, but it is full of what is. From Bhagavan's perspective, why Bhagavan says parandu means it is not a void, that's the word he used in Buddhism. Why he says it's not a void? Because for him, all this world is nothing. See, there's nothing of which it could be empty, but then there was never anything in it. It is alone. It alone is. So it's beyond the duality of emptiness and fullness.
I've heard it described as the plenum void. But
yeah,
that's just a word, isn't it?
Plenum void means the full emptiness.
Yes.
It's full of emptiness.
The fullness of emptiness.
It is what we should understand from all these things is it is beyond mental conception. Yeah. So long as the mind or ego rises to try to understand these things, it will misunderstand.
I don't think it's very important either, is it?
No, I don't think it is. I think you've got to go beyond all these things. But his question was, is it actually something are we actually going to achieve something? I mean, not quite, he didn't express it in that way, but is actually something at the end of the road. Of course, there's no road, but there seems to be, we seem to be on a path. Is there something at the end of it? Yes, what is at the end of it is ourself, as we always are and always have been. What we achieve is a removal of the seeming ignorance that now exists. And that seeming ignorance is the cause of all finitude, all duality, all limitation. So what we will experience after that is infinite happiness, infinite knowledge, infinite being. Bhagavan said very simply in verse 28 of Upadēśa Undiyār, when one knows what when one knows oneself, Anadi, Ananta, Sat, Akanda, Chidananda, that it is, Anadi means it's without beginning. Ananta means without end or infinite. Akanda means it's undivided. Sat, Chidananda. That's all that remains. That's all that remains, but that should be quite sufficient for us, I think.
Me to say thank you for coming in.
All thanks to Bhagavan. we are all nothing with everything.
True.
Thank you very much.